the horror. Well, it's the horror. Afterlife VR, take the stand. Can I recommend you to our faithful listeners? There's only one path to heaven, and that's through me. I charge you with 2 counts of it feels so good, 4 counts of cope with the trope, and one big old count of feel what's not real. A playoff, obviously, feel what's real for PlayStation 5. So it feels so good, Alex. It really does. It is amazing to feel horror games in PlayStation virtual reality again. I know we had Resident Evil 8, but since launch, PSVR2 has been horror absent. Switchback VR doesn't count because it was so broken. And for some reason, this is an awful decision by just the group of developers because it feels so amazing to feel scared in virtual reality. And Afterlife VR proves this. So there you have immediate immersion, hair raising tension, and it's just extremely fun. I like how Afterlife VR went against the grain with small little details of the game. Like, for example, there is no crouch button. You actually have to crouch, which, I'm kind of lazy. I didn't always like that, but it's cool. They don't give you a way out. The inventory system is actually really neat, really easy to use. I've never seen something like that before. The game feels so good. It's intuitive. It's easy to learn. It feels great. And honestly, this allows you to become more invested quickly and focus on the scares and the creepy environment rather than really learning how to play the game like Resident Evil 8. And because of this, on 2 counts of feeling so good, I find you guilty. Alex, hit me with the question. I'm telling you, this game feels and it's great. I love horror.
So you mentioned it feels so good. What is the gameplay like? Are you shooting? Is there combat in it, or is it like solving puzzles? What's happening primarily?
It's so there's shooting and there's telepathy where you can move things with your mind and shoot like shoot them out. But it is also puzzles too. So ultimately, you are a cop. You happen. I'll get into it in the next point actually, but there's as you can tell from the second point, there's a lot of tropey stuff. But ultimately, you're a cop. You're sent to investigate something. Happens to be the same mental institution that your sister is in. So you're going to try to find your sister to ensure she's safe and that you can rescue her. And of course, it's a mental, insane asylum. So a bunch of crap goes down. It really just the fact that I'm in an environment immediately, like I'm turning and looking around corners and I'm always on edge. And that's something that, except for Resident Evil 8, I never felt in VR to this point. It's just something that scary games that they do it to you. They're so immersive in that way. And Afterlife VR is a perfect example of it.
So before we move on, how's that inventory system work? Because now you have me intrigued.
Exactly. So it's very simple. You click the X button and inventory comes up. It's almost like concentric circles almost. The middle circle is just like your hand. There's a picture of a hand. That's where you go in and out of the inventory. And then the circles surrounding that central button are where you put your batteries and where you put your gun, where you put a key. So what happens is, let's say I pick up some ammunition. I pick it up with the L1, like a normal controller. You hit X, and then I move my hand to whatever circle I want to put in that slot. So I put the handle or the ammo, the key, whatever it is, I let go of it, and it's gone. So there's no like start screen. If I want to use something, let's say I want to grab my flashlight, I hit X, I move my hand up because let's say the flashlight was at the 12 o'clock position. I let go and now I have the flashlight in my hand.
That's
Whereas
really
like
nice. Yeah,
Resident
that's
Evil,
it's pretty
it's
intuitive.
more of a production to get to something. This was really fast, really easy, and it was really simple. But I like that because again, you can focus. You don't have to learn how to play the game. It's intuitive and it's it in 5 minutes. You don't need a 30-minute tutorial to figure out how to play.
All right, nice. Let's go on to your second count.
So all good things they do must come to an end, and Afterlife VR isn't perfect. And one of the biggest issues is its tropiness. I don't know if that's a word. I'm calling it a word. So as I mentioned, you play as this police officer, and you receive the call. You have to go to a mental institution. And of course, what do you know? It's the same one that your sister's at. And it's only once you get inside you realize that eerie experiments are being done on the patients. And I don't want to go any more to spoil it, but let's be honest, you can probably guess the plot at this point. So, from the plot to the antagonist, where the scares will come, how you progress, all of this is really predictable, unfortunately. The puzzles are also very basic, they're very uninteresting. You need to go upstairs. Oh, but the elevator's down. Oh, well, the power isn't on, so you got to find the power. Oh, guess what? A fuse is missing. I have to go find the fuse, and so on, so on. Like it's just a whole collection of tropes. Not that it's bad. Again, with it being one of the early VR horror games in PSVR2, it's perfectly fine. But it's just don't expect something to blow you away with its content or originality, because unfortunately it's just not going to. And because of that, on the counts of cope with the trope, I find you guilty.
So, so yeah, if you're somebody who hasn't played VR before, or this is your first time PSVR2, you didn't play PSVR1, I could see this being cool. What if you've played all those horror games around PSVR1? Do the tropes bring it down, or is this going to be like an entirely new thing for you potentially?
I don't think it'll be entirely new, but I've played all those games, and I can still say I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, what I will admit is, am I enjoying it because it just feels good and it's I like horror games, or does it feel good because since PSVR 2 launched, we don't have a game like this other than Resident Evil 8. So it may benefit from being one of the only horror games. And I mean, it is scarier than Switchback. It's not scarier than Resident Evil 8, but I mean, it's pretty scary. For the first time in a long time, like Resident Evil 8 never made me jump. This game got me once. It made me jump hard. I almost let a little I almost crap my pants. I didn't see that one coming, but yeah, so I think there's still something for you, especially this early on, because you don't have a treasure trove of scary games to play. And I would say still give it a shot because it's also cheap. It's $15.
Yeah, not a bad price.
Oh,
Okay, third count.
finally, on the count of feeling what's not real. So the game whisks you away into this afterlife world, and you soon forget that you're in your living room playing a game. The use of room scale even increases the immersion more. So I'm actually sliding across the walls. I'm peeking around the corner for enemies with my flashlight. I'm crouching in real life behind objects. It makes you feel like you are there in real life. And the use of the head rumble, the controller haptics, was really well done. Feeling the resistance of the flashlight on the control, like the trigger, when you turn it on and off, the little kick from shooting the gun, the rumble when you get attacked, all of that is absolutely wonderful. The level of immersion that personally, I don't think I felt this since Resident Evil 8. And that's what virtual reality and horror games can do in general. So you feel the stress, you feel the worry, and you actually feel that tension. And because of that, on the count of feel what's not real, Afterlife VR, I find you guilty.
Okay, so yeah, it sounds like the gameplay works really well. It sounds like you did get scared, but I wonder in terms of like the gunplay. Does it hold up to something like Resident Evil 8? Is Resident Evil 8 just better gunplay, or does it feel kind of equivalent?
I mean, this you have one pistol, so you don't have multitudes of guns. It works pretty well. You have to manually reload, but it's like assist. You just put the ammo with your other hand close to the gun, and it'll automatically load for you. It is very basic, but where I shoot and the accuracy of where I shot, I felt like was good. Tracking worked really well. I mean, really, the thing that blew me away that I loved is I actually got against a wall and like I barely peeked over with my flashlight. And I mean, just in PSVR, I really couldn't do that because again, the tracking would be, like, hey, you're going outside your zone. Here, I can do what I want. I can crouch. I can get on the ground. I can actually peek like physically around the corner or over a stall or underneath some garbage. It's just really neat. And it's something that I think is a good showcase for the PSVR2 in general.
Yeah, it sounds like we're now getting budget titles that are still of good quality because we have the better tracking now, the better controls. But yeah, let's go on to your final verdict.
So, the things I do want to mention before I hand out my final verdict as that an important piece of evidence that the prosecutor failed to mention is the short nature of the game. My first playthrough took an hour and a half. You could easily finish this if you knew what you're doing in less than an hour. It is very short, but as I mentioned, it's only $15. And regardless of that, given the evidence in this case, on the main count of being a worthwhile PSVR2 game, I find you, Afterlife VR, guilty.